So, yeah, I'm not a 6th generation, 4th generation, or even 2nd. I'm a 1st generation farmer. We farm in Temecula Valley, which is just about an hour from here. Really, really beautiful spot. My wife and I were living in Newport Beach for about 10 years and then started the farm there and decided to up and move everything. And so now we live right out there in farm country, and it's really fun and beautiful. But before we do the fun stuff, I want to just get through this. This part sucks, it's not fun, but I think it's really, really important information, and it's stuff that hopefully you guys already know, to be honest. I mean, hopefully we go through this and you're like, yeah, boring, heard it. But I'm gonna guess that some of you may not already. So let's do meat labeling 101. Any questions before we get going? Okay. How old is she?
She is almost.
Nice.
Yeah.
Raising kids around the farm has been like one of the coolest things about this. So starting in Newport was cool too, but in different ways. And now we've got 6, almost 3, and 8 months, and like just raising them in that environment is so epic. And we talk about this stuff with chiropractic and wellness and vitality and all that. And like having kids outside, like in the soil, man, I think you just see, right? Seriously. Okay, we're talking. We like to look at a lot of pictures of animals today. My best way to do this isn't just sit up here and like rant. It's really to just show you visually what's going on. So don't mind. I have a bunch of slides, but they're all pictures. I promise I have like very little text on these slides. Okay. How would you guys describe this chicken operation here? What kind of words would you use to describe it?
Packed.
Packed in. All right.
Chaotic.
Chaotic. What else?
Unhealthy.
Unhealthy. Gross. What labels would you use to describe this one?
Chicken.
Chicken. It is chicken. That's true. That would be accurate if they put chicken on the package. Highly accurate.
Unnatural.
Cage free. So we say cage free. That's accurate. Yeah. Anything else?
Is it free range?
It is free range.
Is it?
It is.
That's free range. That's free range.
Jeez.
No. We're gonna have some fun today. All right, we are gonna have some fun today. This one really similar situation.
Oh.
You may be shocked to know that this is free. My picture totally sucks. This is free range, organic, antibiotic free chicken. Step 4, sold at Whole Foods, sold at Trader Joe's, really sold anywhere. So let's go back a second. This is what you're looking at. Costco. When I do these talks, it is recording, but I really try hard to not pick on individual brands or companies or retailers. I'm really trying to talk generally about the industry, but sometimes, it's inevitable to say this is what they're selling at Whole Foods. Sorry. How is this possibly free range? So, 99.999% of chicken production is all done indoors. You're talking about a 600-foot barn, 40 feet wide. You got birds packed in there and walking on top of each other, defecating on each other, and it's really, really troublesome system for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, to me, is the animal welfare in this environment. It's just atrocious. Chickens are descendant of the wild red jungle fowl. You've seen them wild if you've ever traveled to Hawaii or Thailand or a lot of places. They run around, they do their thing, they forage. They're monogastric, which means they can digest grains and grasses and bugs and worms and seeds, and they're an omnivore animal. They can thrive really well on all different kinds. They have a really sharp beak and these really sharp toes, and basically they can scratch at the ground, and they back up, and they can peck and find little microorganisms and bugs, and they can really eat a lot of different stuff. They're really curious animals, really expressive, they're really social. So when you put them into this environment, they're absolutely tortured, In this environment, a lot of times they need to take, again, this is the sucky part of this talk, they need to take the beaks of these chickens, as baby chicks, and they saw them off with a really hot iron, because they're forager animals. So when they're packed in on a concrete floor like this, they're gonna peck at each other until they kill each other, right? They'll detalonize the birds when they're little baby chicks and rip their talons off. They don't need all of these things inside of the factory farm environment because they're not on grass, they're not able to forage for anything, and they're worried that they're gonna kill each other because there's nothing else to do inside of this environment. That's factory farming. It's gross, it's bad. The birds poop on each other. This is totally stationary. So they live where they poop, they eat where they poop, they bed down where they poop. It smells. Who's driven like through Fresno, Bakersfield on the 99? You know that horrible smell? That's chicken farms. And imagine the smell. You're 5 miles away. Imagine the smell inside of this, and imagine being 8 inches off the ground like a chicken is. That's the ammonia smell of that is so toxic that it'll actually strip the lining out of their esophagus.
What?
And it obviously affects their gut microbiome and their immune system and everything else. Brutal, brutal system. And it's what we call factory farming. We all know it's bad. If you're here, I can almost guarantee you do what you can to avoid it, right? Now, it gets really ugly. How do you take this and call this free range? How's that even possible, right? Yeah. If you look at the very end of this, you see that white light. As long as that door can be open for 2 hours a day, and they technically have access to go outside, that's free range chicken. All that free range means is access to the outdoors. It doesn't matter that they never went outside. That could be a concrete floor with 115-degree Fresno heat and no food or water or shade out there. There's no reason for that chicken to ever go outside, and they never will. Well, it's air conditioned inside of here. But as long as they technically had access to go outside, that's free range chicken, right? Organic. How could this possibly be organic? It's ridiculous, right? Well, Big Ag has fully got their hands all over this industry, and as long as the grains that are being fed to these birds, it comes through this auger system, this pipe right here runs feed all throughout this whole thing. You know, corn and soy-based industrial monocrop feed. As long as it's certified organic by the USDA, that's organic chicken right there. So this is a free-range organic egg operation right here. Not what you or I would probably think of as free-range organic chicken, right? That's just eggs. The party's just getting started. Meat chickens. This obviously looks like a factory farm. So does this. They're both easily free-range, organic, even antibiotic-free. So same rules exist for meat chickens, as long as they had technical access to the outdoors. These birds, these guys are probably about 3-4 weeks old right now. They get so big by the time they're ready for harvest. Their breasts have been like manufactured essentially to keep them just on the ground. So they go between the corn and soybeans to the water and back and forth, and that's their entire life. They're walking on top of each other, defecating all over each other. The antibiotic use is absolutely rampant because it needs to be. We talk, I'm sure chiropractic, you talk a lot about environment. And even with our stuff, we talk about, you can't do all the things like not use all the vaccines or do a delayed vaccine schedule if you're not gonna, feed your kids healthy food and do everything that goes along with that. So it's really similar to this. If you put them in this environment, you have to use vaccines and antibiotics and drugs. There's no other way around it. So then how can this be called antibiotic-free chicken? You can give a chicken antibiotics from the day it was hatched, actually in the egg, all the way through the day of slaughter and still have it be antibiotic-free. It's a huge misconception in the industry. So how does the industry make that possible, right? Well, you give lobbyists enough money and they'll push through legislation that creates a huge loophole. So antibiotic-free, per the FDA standard, just means that the antibiotic residue in the meat tests below the parts per million threshold. And that's all it means. So they could have had antibiotics their whole life. And to be honest, they probably need antibiotics in this environment. When you take the antibiotics out of that, it's inhumane. Like, you have huge mortality spikes. The birds are suffering. You think about the perfect bacteria, perfect environment for bacteria. It's warm, dark, damp, wet environment. That's exactly what's going on here. And 40,000 carriers to spread disease like crazy. So when you think about antibiotics, they really are necessary for this environment. There's not really a way to get around it. But this you could easily be looking at free-range, organic, antibiotic-free, even pasture-raised chicken right here.
What?
Yeah, pasture-raised isn't immune. I do this game, it's called You Name the Label, I'll Name the Loophole. There is no label that's like immune to this stuff, so there is no federal standard on pasture-raised, even though that's the current gold standard that we all want to see, that we want to buy. When I went to the USDA, because I wanted to be able to legally put pasture-raised on our meat packages and stuff, they said, okay, send me a 2-paragraph description of what you do and some pictures. And I sent it in, and I was a little shocked that 2 weeks later they sent something back and said, okay, you can put pasture-raised on all your meat. No inspection, no audit, no phone calls, just 2 paragraphs. So this could easily be considered organic pasture-raised chicken right here. And clearly not what the consumer's thinking about or wants. Again, I don't even know what fresh to market is, but this is just overall, this is what you're gonna see. Free-range chicken, 100%. The word natural, I don't even talk about, because it legitimately doesn't have a meaning. I think it means no food coloring or something. No having hormones, that one's funny because hormones have been outlawed since the 1970s for poultry. No preservatives. Locally and humanely raised. Oh yeah, like zero definition of what humanely raised means, but that's okay. So that's the kind of labels that you would see with this kind of an operation. To go farther, again, this isn't an anti-Trader Joe's, but organic free-range chicken. Okay, you just saw exactly what that looks like, and that's, I can almost promise you, if it's in Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, that's what you're getting. Really depressing, right? Sorry. Any chicken questions on chicken before we go on to a couple other types of livestock real quick? I promise this has a better ending, but we do have to get through this. It's important to set the baseline. Cattle, beef. I love beef and I love cows, but not when I see them like this. So, what does it take for a cow to be grass-fed? Anybody want to try to stab at that one? Dang it. Somebody try. Come on, you're brave.
No corn.
Once a week.
Grass once a week.
No corn. No and no.
They ate grass at some point.
Yeah. Who said that? You got that?
Yeah.
Ate grass at some point. That's what it takes.
There's some percentage in there.
Every single cow in the entire United States is grass-fed. So the way the cow industry works, I'm not even kidding. Like every cow is grass-fed. You can't raise a calf in a feedlot. The grains are so toxic. So we talked about how chickens are an omnivore, a monogastric. They can digest grains and grass and all different kinds of things. This is a ruminant animal, completely different biologically. So what's biologically appropriate for a rumen type animal or an herbivore is only grass. They're never meant to have any grains whatsoever, ever. Of course, the lobbyists get a hold of that and they go, okay, well, the way the cattle industry works is cows are typically raised as calves on open fields in the Midwest somewhere. When they're about 1,000 pounds, they're shipped to a feedlot for 3 months. And at that point, they're put in this kind of environment where they pump them full of corn and soybeans and get them as fat as possible, as fast as they can, and they harvest. So the American Grass-Fed Association goes, okay, we'd like to be able to put grass-fed on everything that we want to, so we write this standard that says as long as the cow spent less than 3 months in the feedlot, they can be called grass-fed. And everybody that was in the industry was like, well, you can't keep a cow in a feedlot for more than 3 months anyways, like it will die. So what are you even talking about? But you see this all the time. I mean, they'll put grass-fed all over the packages, no problem, grass-fed. Grass-finished was kind of brought out as a counterpoint to grass-fed, so everybody learned that like grass-fed was BS. So they said, okay, let's do grass-finished. This is grass-fed, grass-finished organic beef right here. As long as they're being fed grass, they can be called grass-finished. They can be in a feedlot where they're up to their knees in manure and pumped full of any kind of antibiotic or hormone, which are legal for cattle production. This is literally a river of manure running through the middle right here. But that's still grass-fed, grass-finished because they're feeding them grass in this feedlot in the form of pelletized alfalfa, right? Not really what you or I would think of as, you know, beautiful pastured setting, but this is grass-fed, grass-finished, probably organic beef right here. Whole Foods, whatever. Really, nobody's immune to this. And I have a promising story for you at the end of this. Pigs, really, out of everything, maybe the saddest, in my opinion. Having pigs on the farm, you learn how smart of animals they are and how intelligent, curious, and again, social, way beyond chickens, really. And they're just so familial, and it's so fun to watch them like thrive in a good environment. So when they take them, this is called a gestation crate. This is a farrowing operation, which means mama pigs giving birth to babies. They breed these animals so genetically, just impossibly, that they will roll over on their babies and smash them if they're to give birth naturally. And so they have to put them in these gestation crates so that when they have the babies, they're stuck on their side and they can't get up. And so they're just literally just nursing 12 to 15 piglets on their side. And as soon as they wean those piglets at 2-3 weeks, the AI, artificial insemination, comes through and they're just knocking them right back up, right? It's the worst, I think it's the worst animal atrocity that's in modern day livestock is this gestation crate farrowing stuff. The feeder pigs or market pigs don't look much different. You won't see free range on a lot of pork, which is kind of interesting because letting them have access to the outdoors means they can't use these kind of crates. And the industry hasn't really figured out how to do that. So when you get the store next time, you'll see like free range chicken and grass-fed beef, but you may see this, which is organic pork, and it's like the worst picture of all time. All that means is the grains that they were fed inside of that nasty factory farm were organic. It doesn't, but they can't say free range a lot of times. Okay,
I have a question.
that was painful, but yeah.
So, in this past June, or I forget what election it was, we voted on the amount of space that animals were allowed.
Yeah.
And I thought like for chickens, a foot by a foot, I think was what they allocated. Is that like, that progress or?
Well, here's my thing on that is the heart behind it is great. Like people want to see better conditions for chickens. That's awesome. The reality of that legislation is probably not going to do much for animal welfare. All that really does is shift production across state lines. So now you have a lot of guys on the border of Arizona and Oregon that have these massive factory farms packing animals in as tight as they can. And it sort of just puts these California ranchers at a disadvantage. So I'm sort of torn on the thing. I like the idea behind it. Obviously, I like the idea of animals having more than 12 by 12 too. But at least it seemed like a push in the right direction. And a lot of this stuff, it's like consumers want to see better. It's even like the Impossible Burger and stuff like that. It's an environmental atrocity, but the heart behind it, I think, is really good, right? People want to see better stuff for the environment and better stuff for animal welfare, but no, it's not really too big of a step in the right direction. It's a little bit of what my favorite farmer, anybody know Joe Salatin? I know you do. Anybody else? Joe Salatin? Okay. He says you can't wait for salvation by legislation. If we wait for the government to basically tell us how to grow our food, we're way behind the power curve kind of thing. So while I love the heart behind all the animal welfare legislation, it's going to be really hard for them to keep up with really how insidious some of the actors are in this industry, and they'll find a loophole so fast. You know, I even had guys call me kind of from our network of just we hang out with factory farmers and everybody. It's a small community, and I had guys call and say, "It's funny, right? Like they're really going to send an inspector out to my ranch to tell me that I have to get less chickens. So we can pass whatever we want in Sacramento, but whether that gets followed through on the farm level is pretty unlikely too." So, what other questions about this stuff? I know it's kind of gnarly.
No, I know Trader Joe's just had this whole crate-free pork thing. What does that mean?
Gestation crate free is good, so this is the crates that they're talking about on that. I'm not even really familiar with what Trader Joe's doing that. The really scary thing about that is if you don't have crates, then the moms are rolling over on their babies a whole lot more. So it's really like there's this whole system reform that needs to happen when you just get rid of cages, or you just get rid of crates, or like you get rid of antibiotics. It's kind of like I was saying. You get rid of antibiotics in an environment like this, and you have a lot of dead pigs. Like I don't know that that's the most humane thing, right? Really, if you're gonna stick animals indoors at all times, maybe these crates are better. And yeah, I would say using antibiotics is probably what you need to do in this environment. But we need to just take this and look at it a completely different way, which I'm gonna show you in a minute. We're really going back to nature and respecting the way things were created and designed. And I think it goes a lot into the way that these guys talk about body and health and healing too. If we try to overlay, you know, a standard that we have onto this, it's going to be ugly every time. We really need to go back and look at how we frame the whole problem, right? But I'm guessing they're saying no gestation crates, and while that sounds good, I don't know how good it really is in practice. These animals have just been bred to be so big and reproduce so fast. You're probably looking at a lot of little smashed baby pigs, which isn't a fun thing to think about, I know. Sorry to bum that out. Alright, anything else? Okay, we can do like a little thing at the end too. Alright, so here's where it's fun though. We're gonna totally take a turn, we're gonna talk about some really cool stuff, and this is where I got really excited about this, was I think it's great, we can produce good food, we can like provide a really good welfare situation for the animals, it's really cool, but what really got me to quit my job as an accountant and go into this farming thing full time is the idea that you can actually be an environmental asset or beneficial to the environment using livestock. And people are just barely starting to catch on to this really, but it's a huge, huge idea that I think can really form the next 50 years of food globally. And it all kind of goes back to looking at nature, the way that things were designed. What animal do we have here? I know you guys live in San Diego, but you know you have livestock, right? Cool. Go back about 100, 200 years in the United States, and the dominant species by far was this American bison. Anybody want to guess how many bison were in the U.S. 150 years ago or 200 years ago?
It's a million or
A million?
30
Way
million?
more, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? You're looking at like 60 to 80 million. Of course, there's no way to know exactly how many, but 60 to 80 million is the range that scientists use. That's how many bison were in the United States. And they were obviously concentrated sort of in like that 1/3 Midwest region. Okay, now, here's what tripped me out when I learned this. How many cows are in the US right now?
So we're building.
A billion? Way less. You guys are young, but you need to guess more. Come on. 80 million. Right? So think about that for 1 second. That's what tripped me out when I really got into this. There was 60 to 80 million bison carrying capacity, no problem, in the U.S. for whatever you want to believe, but a million years, 20 million years, who knows? Now there's 80 million cattle. We hear every day that cows are causing this environmental disaster, they're causing global warming, they're doing all this horrible stuff to the environment. And I would say it's actually completely false. It's my favorite sort of food writer is Diana Rogers. Anybody familiar with Diana Rogers? She's a total stud. She says it's not the cow, it's the how, right? So the way that these bison lived 200 years ago and for millions of years before that were in massive herds, right? So the Native Americans would say there's like 4 million bison in a single herd sometimes. What are they doing all day long? What do these bison do? Eat, right? They're gonna eat grass that grows in a natural grassland, a pasture, one of the most complex, diverse, and beautiful ecosystems in the entire world. What do they do after they eat? Poop. What do they do after they've eaten the grass and pooped on the ground? They move, right? Eat, poop, move. That cycle sounds really simple, but it's really, really cool what happens when you eat, poop, and move. So these animals will eat the grass. You see how it's like totally trampled down like this too? They've eaten the grass, they've pooped on the ground. Poop is our friend, okay? It's the best fertilizer the world has ever known. It's better than anything Monsanto has ever been able to figure out. It's absolutely the best ecological asset that you can have if it's applied properly. If it's over-applied or under-applied, it can be a huge problem. But these bison, in their herds of 4 million, they said the sound was deafening when a herd of bison would go by. They would eat the grass, poop on the ground, move to the next spot, right? And that happened for millions of years. Where were these bison mostly at? The Midwest, right? Now, fast forward to like the 1920s, 1930s, and you start talking about the most fertile, land, the Great Plains, the most fertile land the world has ever really even seen. The Ocala Aquifer is an amazing body of water underneath the ground in our current corn and soybean country. They've essentially, for lack of a better word, raped all the nutrients that these huge herds of bison put in out of 10 million years of grazing, fertilizing, and moving, grazing, fertilizing, and moving. They're using all those nutrients that have been done for the last maybe 60 years for corn and soybean production in those areas. And so when you see the pictures of the really beautiful, deep, rich, dark dirt, that was created by these guys, not by the chemical companies and the stuff that we've seen the last little bit. So establishing that, we understand that big grazing ruminant animals can be a huge environmental asset left up to their own devices, right? And they were for a long time. It's still some of the best soil in the world, even after we've been on it for 60 to 80 years doing our junk to it, growing grains. A little diagram of how this stuff works. So I'm not this dorky to understand even what all this stuff means, but essentially the cows poop on the ground, that poop goes in to fertilize the grass. That grows a better grass crop the next year. So when we talk about sustainability, that's kind of like treading water, right? It's like you're never getting worse, but you're also not making it better. So what we're really talking about is this idea of regenerative agriculture. I know you guys are regenerative wellness. Like we don't want to just stay kind of in that state like we are. We want to get healthier all the time. That's the same thing we're trying to do with soil, right? So instead of going through and tilling and disking and doing all this crazy stuff, we use the animals to graze these tall grasses. They poop on the ground, and then that poop becomes grass for the next time. What is this grass though? This grass is actually the best, even after millions, probably billions of dollars of research, grass and pasture still remains the single best method for sequestering carbon known to man. So we have this huge carbon issue right now with all the cars that are on the road and industrial agriculture and a lot of the bad stuff that's going on, grass and pasture is still by far the most effective way to take carbon out of the atmosphere and put it back where it belongs, in the soil. Yeah, that's enough on that.
What about algae?
What was it, algae?
I was always informed that algae was one of the best, like, to produce oxygen.
There you go. I don't know anything about algae sequestering carbon. It would make sense because it's the same idea of collecting photosynthesis and carbon in the ocean. Is really, algae is just grass of the ocean, right? It's not too different. I would need to research that, but I'm not saying no to it by any means. It sounds like it could make sense to me. Okay, take another turn. Fast forward. Here's me, circa 2009-ish, in southern Iraq. College athlete, really active guy, sports my entire life, military after that, and all of a sudden I found myself at like 23 years old feeling like crap, like day in and day out. Couldn't breathe through my nose. Arthritis, like ankles, knees, back, elbows, neck, not sleeping well, brain fog all the time, like low energy, all this dumb stuff that I just couldn't figure out what was wrong. And of course I'm in the military eating a SAD diet, which is the standard American diet, and didn't know any better, had no idea. Had some buddies that were into the CrossFit / paleo thing was getting really popular back then. And I just felt so bad that I really was open to trying anything. I'd never connected the idea that what you put into your body affects the way you feel and perform and sleep and everything else. And within 2 weeks, I could breathe through my nose again. I had like no joint pain. I didn't have to take vitamin M, that's what we call Motrin in the Marine Corps. All this stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. You know, I'd never expected that what I put in my body could affect the way that I feel so much. And so at that point, I brought that back to my family after coming back from Iraq. I said, you guys, like, this is crazy, but I think the food that we're eating actually has a pretty big impact on the way that we feel and stuff. So these are my two brothers-in-law, my father-in-law right here. He was about 100 pounds over, he was like 300 pounds at the time, not at this time, this was after maybe a year. These guys were both college basketball players, they're both overweight, same thing, nasal plug and all this stuff. And as a family, we just started pretty much eating clean and healthy as much as we could. And we weren't super educated on it, so we're just pretty much sticking to paleo / Weston A. Price principles, trying to avoid sugar and grains and dairy and legumes and stuff like that, just really, really simple. Not necessarily bio-individual, just mass market paleo. And we've modified some since then, but from that experience, we all started to get healthy again, and like all started performing way better and thinking better and sleeping better and all this, and started buying a lot more local organic food as much as we could for about a year. And like all of you, we were on a budget, so we're spending a lot of extra money on this stuff and trying to feed our kids. Now kids start to enter the equation, trying to feed them the best you can, and I became really disenchanted when I started doing the research and I found the stuff that I was showing you at the beginning of this, that we're spending a lot of extra money every month, pretty much paying these huge industrial agriculture companies for labels. And that just pretty much pissed us off enough to where this guy, my brother-in-law Rob, we were sitting around joking in Easter of 2012 about like getting chickens for the backyard. He took it a little more seriously than everybody else, so he disappeared from the room. He comes back like 20 minutes later and goes, oh yeah, I just ordered 50 chicks, they're gonna be here in 2 weeks. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about, you know? Never raised a dog, like not farmers at all, you know? Read a book from Joel Salatin, and he's sort of like been our mentor through this whole thing. He's done this for about 30 years in the Virginia area, and just a really, really bright thinker and philosopher and farmer. And so we copied his principles, but all it really was we just put animals outside. It's as easy as that, and move them around. Like, it's not complicated, it's not rocket science, it's really intuitive. We all, if you go back maybe 4 or 5 generations, I can guarantee you have agriculture in your blood. Humans and ag have evolved over time, and it's just instinctual. When you see something, you can tell if it's good or bad, right? So we just raised the animals the way that we thought they should be raised. Going back on it now, I thank God that we weren't 3rd or 4th generation, because anybody would have told you, you can't do it like that. Chickens will get sick if you put them outside. They'll get eaten, they'll get this and that and that and that. But we were dumb enough, I guess, or naive enough to just raise them the way that we thought was right. The grain we supplemented with was a certified organic, soy-free. We were doing the paleo thing, so that kind of made sense to us. And we just thought that we would eventually harvest these birds for our family and put them in the freezer and kind of eat chicken really good for that year. But I was, the perpetual entrepreneur in me was like, this is really expensive, we don't have enough money, let's like sell a few of them to help offset their cost. So we put some stuff up on Facebook in 2012, and all 50 birds sold out within like 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, it was crazy, you know? And then the next month we did 100 birds, and the same thing happened, and then 200, and then 500, and then 1,000, all using this sort of eat, poop, and move, rotational grazing, holistic management, really just farming off of instinct and the way that we would want to eat the food and feed our kids. The business kind of started to take shape. Then we got into this, and we kind of learned, anybody familiar with Eat Wild?
No.
Write it down, or just at least remember it. Eat Wild is an amazing resource. They basically, it's self-identified, but these are supposedly pasture-based farms that are dropped on a Google map. And I think it's really helpful. I'm not saying everybody on this map is legit or good, but it's a really good starting place. And you click on each pin, and it says who the farm is and what they produce, and gives you a phone number or website to go check out. I think it's a really good starting place when you're going to go look for stuff. And that's Eat Wild. But when I went on this map, and I started thinking about this, I saw an instant problem, right? Anybody else see the problem that I see right here?
There's not a lot in Southern California.
Yeah, so you have like 75% of the population here, and like 25% here, yet you have like 90% of the farms up here, and honestly, most of these pins are like in the ocean, so they're not even real. Like when you click on them, they're like random drop sites for different farms and stuff like that from Northern California. But it just blew me away that we have 22 million people kind of within an hour of Temecula, hour and a half of Temecula, yet we have almost no farms doing pasture-based, what also is true pasture-based livestock production. And that just tripped me out, and we were like, okay, let's actually make a company. So we called the company Primal Pastures, and we just started with the 50 birds and pretty much grew it from there. We eventually got the soil healthy enough, it was growing too much grass, so either spend a bunch of money on a really fancy lawnmower or buy some sheep, right? And so just looking at nature and trying to model ourselves off nature was like, okay, well we should get sheep. And so we started grazing the sheep and pretty much trailing the chickens behind the sheep, and this thing worked really well. And we started having people say, okay, I love the lamb and the chicken, but where should I buy my beef from? And so we spent like a year researching really good regenerative pasture-raised beef operations and visiting a bunch of different people and stuff. And we settled on like 1 or 2 different farms that we could really, with integrity and like really happily source beef from. And so we started buying beef from like whole cows from these farms and then butchering it and pretty much selling that. And this whole little thing was born, and by 2014 I was like quitting my job and moving to Temecula from Newport Beach, so it was a complete trip. This is sort of what the farm looks like nowadays. So we use what's called a mobile range coop. Some of you guys have been to the farm, so you've seen this in real life. The idea of this is, again, the herd of bison, so they're meant to be together. The predators would have kept them together back in the day, but you want a high stocking density, which is going to give you a lot of manure with a short duration. So we're going to have these birds inside of it's pretty much a greenhouse, and there's no floor on it, right? So it's just shade and food and water inside of here. Lots of fresh air and sunshine can come in through the side, and we take this, basically this greenhouse, and we move it every single day using a truck so that the birds are on fresh pasture every single day, but they get all the benefits of like shade and food and water instead of the kind of creature comforts that keep them alive and keep our mortality low, keep the coyotes from eating all the birds, which is a whole other story. That's what our pasture-raised chicken operation looks like. These birds take more than twice as long to grow out as the factory farmed equivalent to get to the same size, but that's fine with us. They're supplemented again with that certified organic soy-free grain, that's organic corn and organic peas and rice. But the primary part of their diet that's really the most important to us is this grass. So that's grass and bugs and seeds, worms, flowers, weeds, really anything that they can get their hands on. They're like little Tyrannosaurus rexes.
So how many chickens do you keep inside of one of those?
This will be about 500 chickens, so it's kind of like, I'm sort of like standing towards the end of it, but you can't see, probably a bunch of stuff down here. Yeah, there's probably about 500 birds in each one of these. And again, those are moved every single day to the fresh spot of the pasture. So they're not sleeping on their own manure, they're like and really, and you can sit in here and have lunch for those of you guys that have been to the farm. It's not a nasty environment, doesn't stink. It's really, really beautiful. You know, this is kind of like what the farm starts to look like after a while. This is an electric temporary fence, so you can kind of see that around here. So we want to do the same thing with the sheep. We mob them up using electric fencing. They eat the grass, poop on the ground, and then we're going to move them to a new spot almost every single day on the farm. And that's that regenerative process. If we were to just turn these 50 sheep out over 50 acres, they would essentially like eat too much of one spot and not enough of others. And I wouldn't always know if they're grazing stuff that's already been grazed. So kind of like replicating nature and the predatory thing, I want to bunch them up and move them around manually. If we had 50 million sheep, they would do this on their own, but having only 50, you need to do it manually. So using electric fencing, we can rotate them around like that. Same thing with the beef. Now we source beef from northern Arizona. It was really amazing. I call it true pasture-raised beef. I know that they can pirate that name in the industry and stuff, but this is a farm that we've been to, we've visited, we know them personally. We're really proud actually that we aggregate beef instead of raising it ourselves. I don't think the industry really requires us to do everything. It's like a dream. I would love to be doing that in 10 years and doing our own beef and stuff, but Southern California is really not the best place for beef either. It's dry, and not this year, but normally it's really dry. Land is super expensive. So there are better places to do even better beef, and our beef is really awesome. The pasture raised, kind of forest style pork, raised here, open oak trees. We do a bunch of our own pork production, and then we also supplement with another farm out of Hollister. This is the farm in Hollister, really, really beautiful. Outdoor, no need for antibiotics or drugs or anything. The pigs just live outside. They're also a monogastric. Omnivore, so pigs like chickens can have grains, they can eat meat, they can eat vegetables, they can really eat everything. Completely different than cows and sheep. And that's what the farm looks like. The big thing that we're all about is transparency and integrity. So like, this is a few of the ways that you can come and actually spend time at the farm. One of the big questions I get is like, okay, you put a hole in pasture raised and free range and antibiotic free, like, what do I look for? Like, it's a really depressing message. So our big thing, it's not about primal pastures, but anybody that you buy meat from, to me it's just important to know the farmer. There's a really simple message that your grandparents knew. I can promise you your great grandparents knew it if your grandparents didn't. There didn't used to be supermarkets where you go to buy your food. You would have a relationship with the farmer and you would buy your food from that person, and you could shake their hand and know who they were. And I think we've gotten so far away from that. That's really what's caused the environmental destruction and the industrial ag revolution, is that we're not connected to our food at all anymore. And you can walk through the grocery store and these beautiful cellophane wrapper packs of meat. It's really easy to dissociate from a living, breathing animal at some point in time. And I think that that's gotten us to where we are, which is really more manufacturing than farming, you know. We offer monthly farm tours. We have workshops all the time. We just brought on an on-farm chef, and so he's doing like these really cool traditional foods cooking classes where we chill out and drink wine and cook. We just did soups. I think he's doing tacos pretty soon. Really, really fun. We do school field trips all the way from like preschool, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, all the way up to college ag classes and stuff. Yeah.
What kind of workshops do you do?
We do a processing workshop. That's the first one that comes to mind. It's super gnarly.
It's really good though.
Have you been to it?
Yeah.
And I wasn't there?
It's really interesting.
I thought I'd been to all of them.
I don't know.
Oh,
It was like
as
a
in like a
tour
butchery?
and then I
Butchery, yeah. Well, slaughter too.
Oh, the
So
slaughter
the processing workshop, I will tell you straight up, it's for like 1% of people. Most people don't find this interesting or appealing, and that's totally fine. I'm not of the camp that you need to be able to kill it if you want to eat it. No, like I totally disagree with that.
I only
That's not
saw the
historically
demo.
accurate.
I didn't do it myself.
Okay. The demo's good too. The processing workshop is where you actually take a bird, like you go pick it from the field, and we teach you the 5 steps of slaughter, butchery, and packaging. And it is really gnarly. I would say like 20% of the class is typically vegetarian, vegan, that just wants to have that experience, either because they're feeding meat in their household and they want to know where the food comes from, or they're like, I'm not going to eat meat until I've done this, and I want to know how it works, you know? And I seriously respect that. Almost every time, it's like this weird dichotomy, because you have hunter dudes that are there, or like homesteaders who are like, killed deer before, and then you have like people literally in tears, because it is really emotional, and like, we try to totally support that too. It should be emotional, you know? The fact that it's not emotional kind of bothers me. Like, we've gotten to this place where it's just like, it's just again, cellophane wrappers on the side of a grocery store. Like, you don't think about the way that the animal lived, or, you know, anything really. We just think of it as nutrients and calories now, and that's jacked up. Potlucks, the potlucks are super fun. I kind of got in trouble with the health department for that. We'll see if we bring that back.
I think you're doing it right.
Yeah, right. As many ways as we can think of to get people to the actual farm. Like, that's what's super important to us. Transparency, integrity means it's great. You can go on our social media and you can look at the videos and the pictures. We try to post that stuff like every day. To me, that's like a modern way to know your farmer. I know that 20 years ago that wasn't possible. I'd say it's easier now than ever before to know your farmer because you have stuff like social media, which I hate, but for that purpose, I find it actually pretty useful. So there's nothing that can replace, at least once, like make the trip up to Temecula, come for a tour. And there's another hack, so again, not about primal pastures. I'm not trying to like make it sound like we're the only ones that do this. When you're at the farmer's market, I get this question all the time, like, what should I look for at the farmer's market? There is really bad food at the farmer's market. There's bad actors. There's guys that will buy stuff from the grocery store, Winco, take it out, thaw it out, put it in their own packaging, and sell at the farmer's market. Like, all the time, stuff happens, and it's gross. But one of my favorite hacks that I tell people is like, go and ask the person if they offer farm tours. You don't have to go, but if they say no, like, run the other direction. You know, it's a bad sign if they're not even willing to show you the farm. That's not cool. As much as I don't like social media, it is really useful. You can go on and actually learn quite a bit. You have Fakos on there. I hate to pick on Vital Farms, but they're one of the ones that I think is a Fako. So they put a lot of pictures up of the birds out on pasture and stuff. It's not the way that 99.9% of the birds are living. So just watch out for it. But social media can be a useful tool. I think use your detective skills and know if it's like some corporate company posting for them, or if it's like an actual farmer out there posting pictures and videos from the farm. It's really good. But yeah, come to my farm or go to another farm. It's super fun. Bring the kids. Like, it's such a fun day out. I think it's totally worth your time. To order our meats from Primal Pastures, we have farm to door ship home delivery, and we have farm pickup. So if it's not easy for you to get up to the farm to pick up your order, we ship meats up to Washington, down to the border, all the way out to Texas. So like, it's one cool thing for us. We don't do any farmers markets. I don't think farmers markets are good for farmers. These poor guys, when you see them and you find somebody good, support the heck out of them. Don't just go buy like 1 pound of ground beef. Like, try to buy your actual groceries from them. But we've just found when you can shop online, you don't have, I know, you go to the farmer's market, you got the 2 kids, the 1 stroller, 1 coffee, and it's like, I can't go buy my groceries for the week. So we do the online, primalpastures.com, you can buy chicken, lamb, beef, pork, even we've started doing some fish and some snacks and some different things that we've fully vetted and stuff like that. Here's my caveat. Don't get mad because we're sold out of stuff all the time. There's a reason for it. It's not because we're awesome, it's because we really believe in nose to tail. So like, if I haven't sold the oxtail, I'm not gonna go bring in more beef. Like, I have to wait until I've moved through the whole animal. It's a respect thing more than anything else. I'm not just gonna throw crap away. Like, it's really important that our customer base understands that. Like, we're a tribe, we're a community. We need to basically be moving through this whole animal. That doesn't mean you have to take every single piece, but somebody does before I bring in new stuff. And that's just super important to us. The budget question comes up all the time. Yes, it's like hyper expensive. I'm sorry, I wish it wasn't. It's the reality of better stuff costs more to make. Trust me, we're not getting rich off of this thing, but we are trying to provide the absolute best quality possible. But on the budget conversation, talk about what products to order versus what not to order. If budget's your thing, which is not for everybody, for some people it's convenience or taste or flavor, but for some people budget's a real thing, I want to address that. There are cuts that are way cheaper, yet equally nutritionally superior as anything else. So something like a filet mignon in our store could be $35 for a pound, right? A ground beef could be $10 a pound or even less if you buy in bulk. Same nutritional property to both of those items, or even less, go with a chuck roast or something cheaper, still amazing nutritionally, but you get all those benefits. A whole chicken, you have to learn how to work with whole chickens. I know it's intimidating in the beginning. You're like in the kitchen all the time, so you know how to do it, but for me, as a young guy, like I was tripped out. I thought I was gonna come back to life or something. It won't, I promise you, it's done. When we sell a whole chicken on the site, to buy all those parts cut up individually packed would be almost double what it costs to just buy the whole chicken. And again, that's not me getting rich, like that's just what it costs for us to cut it up, package it, process it, put all the plastic on it, buy the whole chicken if you can. I know it's a little intimidating, but just get used to it. It's a really good cooking experience. And one whole chicken can be like 3 meals. So you can cook for a main dish, and you can have leftovers, and then you can make the bone broth after that too. And like make bone broth. We do sell pre-made bone broth. Again, if convenience is your thing and you have plenty of money, then buy it like that. But if budget's your thing, make your own bone broth. It's like 10 times cheaper. So that's a few things. The last one, you guys are young, so I don't know if you're in a spot to do this or not, but buying like quarter, whole, and half animals. That's the way your grandparents did it, and that's the way, you know, when you get to that point, do it. You'll save, again, thousands of dollars a year buying the best, highest quality stuff. Instead of buying individually a la carte items, you can buy like a quarter beef. And I know it's a lot, it's like $900 or something, but it's 100 plus pounds of meat, and you put it in your freezer. We even have a program where we're like, provide you with a free freezer. I'm trying to remember if we still have that or not. I think it's free freezer, and it's like small, you know, even fit in your apartment or something like that. And it's 100 pounds. You'd be shocked how long it lasts you. And the coolest thing is like, oh, what do I want to have for dinner tonight? Like, I know it all came from literally one animal. I know the ranch and know where it came from. I don't want to have burgers. Do I want to have a steak? Do I want to make a roast? Like, it's a cool experience to have that. And again, you'll save like thousands of dollars doing it that way. Learn how to cook the weird stuff. We don't have that much weird stuff anymore because we streamlined. We started putting a lot of the weird stuff into the bone broth, the pre-made bone broth that we make. But even something like a chuck roast, it sounds intimidating. It's like 3 pounds of meat. What do I do? I'm single. I don't eat that much meat. Like, just cook it, and then you can portion it out, freeze the rest of it, eat it later. There's so many ways and so many recipes. I wouldn't even start to try to go into it. So yeah, that's the budget thing in a nutshell. Don't pay too much for shipping. Like, if you can, put bigger orders together. And if we get over $300 and it's free shipping, and like over $100, I think it's $10 shipping or something. So try to get bigger orders less often and just fill up your freezers. No reason for FedEx to make all the money on this thing. And that's it. I think I have a code. Yeah. If you guys want to order, this is free shipping, so you can do like a smaller order and get free shipping for your first order. I wish we could do more, but to be honest, margins are tight in this business, so feel free to use that for like, it'll be active for the next 7 days or something. And this is all the ways that you can follow what we're doing. PrimalPastures.com, email us here, call us here. Facebook and Instagram. I know it sounds corny, but it's honestly like a really good way for us to keep in touch with our customers, and some of you guys may already follow us and stuff like that. We try to post something from the farm, video, pictures, stuff like that pretty much every day, and if you have a question or comment or whatever, we'll like really try to respond there actively and stuff. So that's it, and I'd love to try to like answer any questions that you guys have, as long as they're not algae related, because that would stump me, dude. Yeah.
How much do you know about the dirt of like the meat industry? So 2 questions. One is the Whole Foods 5 scale thing legit? Because I look at it, I'm like, not really. Unless it's 4 or 5 on their scale, like it's probably just the same as like conventional, whatever. Do you know about that particular? And I'm sorry if I missed it.
Know about that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I can't.
Let me show you step 4, and potentially step 5. I mean, there's no reason that couldn't be step 5, right? So as long as they had access to the outdoors, they have little what the industry calls pop doors, and they're these little tiny outlets that like pop up like this, and they need to go out to like a pasture area that could be audited annually or even biannually, like once every 2 years. And the farmers know when it's coming, so they go plant some grass right before. I mean, it's pretty atrocious. Yeah, the gap scale is an absolute joke. Oh yeah, this could be. Oh, you weren't here. This could be free range organic pasture raised chicken right here. No problem.
Pasture raised too.
No problems. Yeah, no problem.
That's scary.
Yeah, so I wish the Whole Foods thing was better. I actually think this is Mary's right here. So that's their barn, and that's what you would find step 4 to 5 at Whole Foods. No problem. Yeah.
So did you, when you started researching, did you just literally go and start visiting farms and seeing it for yourself?
Yeah, you can go. I mean, you can drive right through, and you can find out where these farms are at. You drive up, and it's like just like the difference of conventional poultry or organic poultry. Like if you or me walked into the barn, we would not notice any difference at all. It would look the exact same going into organic chicken factory, farm, or manufacturing facility than it would a conventional one. So it was kind of shocking. And even with that, I really don't talk about other brands intentionally unless I've physically been there myself. And this is one that I have been here before, to the Pittman Farms, Mary's operation I've just seen. They call it a porch, and they call it pop doors, and they call it free range. And honestly, when we talk to some of the executives in the industry, and they laugh. They go, yeah, it's really funny that like we can do this and people call it free range, and they will say, from their side, they'll say, well, people will believe what they want to believe. All we're doing is just following the rules, right? So that's their perspective on it. From our perspective, it's like, well, you're intentionally misleading people and you're being very non-transparent. And I think even more sinister than that, we've got a lot of customers that are in a bad spot. They've got a kid going through cancer, leukemia, they've got actual problems, right? And like, I'm just not cool with that, you know? If you want to do large-scale factory farming to feed the masses and you want to be open and transparent about it, go for it. Like, it's not good, but at least you're being honest about it. If you're gonna do this, and you're gonna call it organic, pasture raised, and free range and everything else, and like, you've got that kid that's going through cancer, and you're trying to feed him the best you possibly can, and like, that's not cool, man. Like, that's what really got me fired up enough to go into this. It's super lame. And that doesn't mean that we're perfect somehow, or everything we do is perfect, but at least we're gonna be transparent and offer that traceability for people to come see what we're up to, you know? What else? Any other questions?
What are like ethical like slaughtering methods?
Slaughter's super important to us. I don't always go into it because I know it kind of trips people out, but the faster you can do it, the better, and you want the animals handled the most peaceful way possible. So the way that we do it, we'll go into our chicken tractors late at night. So after the birds are already asleep, what night is it? Wednesday? They're actually, Tuesday. Tomorrow night they'll actually be doing this. So we go in really late at night. We pick up the birds after they've been asleep. We put them onto a truck. That truck leaves at like 2 in the morning before they've woken up. It arrives at the slaughterhouse at about 4 in the morning, which is up in LA. We used to do all of our own backyard processing until we got too big and they won't let us do that anymore. So we bring them to, well, let me back up a second. We researched for 3 years, basically. Backyard processing sucks. It's not a fun job. You know, you've done it before. And you know, but you've never done it on scale. So doing like hundreds of them or thousands of them is not cool. So we were researching for 3 years, but we couldn't find anybody that we were happy with the way that they treated the animals and the cleanliness. And honestly, the organization's a big deal too. The fact that you bring up what you get back is really important, right? So we finally found this guy in downtown LA of all places that we felt like did a really great job with the birds. It's a smaller plant. I don't like the way that so he sells his own birds under a Jadori label, if you've ever seen that one on menus and stuff. I don't like the way that they farm the birds, but the way they do the processing is really good, clean, organized, and they're really good on the animal care part. They'll take the birds off the truck. They'll essentially put them directly onto a stun machine, so the stun knocks them out within seconds. So they're completely knocked out for the whole process. The next part is they cut the carotid arteries, bleed the animal out, and then they go through a hot water bath, completely dead, loosens the feathers, knocks them off, and then they take the guts out and eviscerate the bird. It's a pretty simple process, but the big part of it is how long are the birds transported. That can be really bad on the birds if they're transported a long ways, especially during their waking hours. It's not cool. And then how the birds are handled when they're actually at the plant. And they're fully open, transparent. You guys could go up there and go for a tour, you know, and it's that traceable and stuff. So the way that they handle the birds is industry best. I mean, leaders in that for sure. That's just chicken though. So like, yeah, there's different parts for every single one. The pigs is really interesting. So they started using laughing gas, and they'll knock the pigs out before they do anything, which people are still trying to figure out if they can do that for other types of livestock, but for pigs, their heart beats a lot faster, so they can do it and still get the blood out of them. But I think it's really great for humane treatment of the pigs. They get to the harvesting station, they gas them, and it's not like a toxic gas or something like that. It just knocks them out, and it doesn't affect the meat or anything. Then they go through and they can do the whole same thing. Cut the carotids, do the eviscerating, cutting, butchering, all that stuff. Beef is done a little more rudimentary still. It's what's called a bolt gun. So it's like not something that shoots an actual bullet. Sorry if this is gross. Is it?
No, I'm just staring out the air.
Sometimes I see people's face get white. I'm like, oh. You forget how desensitized this stuff you get, to be honest. A bolt gun will go straight into their temple, and it's like this bolt that comes out, kills them instantly, and then retracts. So it's not like a bullet that goes in, it's just a bolt that comes out and then retracts. And that kills the animal instantly on the spot. So that's the most humane way that you can do it as well. Sheep done the same way. So that's all of those. What I said about organization is really important. There's some really small, wonderful butcher shops and slaughterhouses that we'd love to work with. They treat the animals really, really well, but they're so small that they're disorganized. And if I don't have the confidence that the cattle that I bring in are the cattle that I will get out after it's been butchered, I can't work with them. As awesome as they are and small and family owned and all this stuff, it's really cool, but I can't risk that, right? So like, I need them to be of sufficient size, or at least organization, that I can trust what I'm getting back. And that, trust me, we've been suspect on a couple different places that we've worked with, and we had to stop working with a couple guys just because, you bring in an animal with 700 pounds, and the one that you get back is 400. You're kind of like, what's going on there, right? So that stuff happens too. Sometimes by mistake, sometimes not.
What about turkey? Like, is that a very common thing that is grown, like in your setting, or?
I mean, California's famous for turkey, but one of the weird things is with consolidation, the bigger companies just keep getting bigger and bigger, and so they'll own and control the slaughterhouses. I would love to grow turkey. I think I have a market for 5,000 turkeys a year, and I don't have access to processing. So I don't complain about that because a lot of farms across the country don't have access to any processing. We're lucky we have beef, chicken, lamb, and pork, all within striking distance. I don't have turkey though. So it's hard to find good turkey. I don't have a turkey that I recommend. Like, people call us every Thanksgiving going, what turkey should I buy? And I just go, I can't get myself behind any turkey that's out there on the market right now. Unless you can find somebody really small that did it in their backyard or their small farm and did the processing themselves on farm. That is technically legal, but I'm not too interested in processing 5,000 turkeys in my backyard by hand kind of thing. So.
You know Dolly Ranch?
Yeah, I am familiar. You know them. Talk all about them.
Yeah, they're great. What do you want to know?
Well, I know about them. But they do turkeys. They raise turkeys. So.
Yeah, they have turkeys, and there's actually a couple places out in Temecula. We have a tarantula farm out in Temecula, and they have their own set of turkeys. I met them.
Tarantula farm in Temecula?
Yeah, so I used to cook for them, and they were like, and Thanksgiving came around, and I was like, hey, is there any way I can buy one of your turkeys? Because I don't want them. They're like, oh yeah, we sell them every Thanksgiving and stuff. So they do their own it's Jamie's Tarantula Farm. Jamie's Tarantula Farm in Temecula.
Isn't it also
Thank you, man.
Taj,
Appreciate it.
TAJ? Have you heard of them? I think they also do
I
turkeys.
don't know. I haven't heard of that. But
Turn off the
Taylor
camera.
Ranch
Taj
is pretty
Farm's
good
suspect.
too.
There's a lot of
I've never heard of Taj.
Taj Farm is suspect. Yeah, they're like a Craigslist operation, fly by night. Yeah. Sorry, Taj Farm.
Sage Mountain.
Sage Mountain. So here's the thing. Even with Dolly, Dave and Heather are friends of mine. I respect them. We know each other.